Bing, bing, bong, bing. Bing, bing, bong, bong, bing, bing.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
John, you know what? I have some real problems over the weekend. I have John Combest withdrawal because of the fact that I have nobody to discuss things with. Isn't that terrible?
Oh, starve, Brad. Like, there's remedies for that, Brad. But until we're able to clone me, I think you're SOL.
I'm an SOL in a lot of categories, my son. Lots of stuff going on. Hard to believe that we are on the day before the election. And how many times in the last month have you read I don't care if it's on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News, the poll results, and it's like, okay, just keep saying, well, it's tied. I mean, they're talking about like Trump is ahead in California or not California, but like Arizona by 0.9. Okay, the margin of error of the poll is 5%. So like it really makes a lot of difference. You know what I'm saying?
They're breaking a lot of new ground by saying that this will be a close election. The second favorite one, excuse me, is the longtime cliche you hear from political people, which is the only poll that matters is the one that's on election day.
Yeah, well, that's that's not a poll, but that is a poll. Okay, that is John Combest, Combest. By the way, we have to talk about this crazy things happened after we got off the air on Friday. The crazy thing at St. Charles County with the judges and the Republican Central Committee, which is claiming it's not the Republican Central Committee, but that's a whole other story. John Combest, Combest, puts together the site. He's done it for 23 years. Every single day, he puts together numerous links. It's like, if you're familiar with the Drudge Report, this is the Drudge Report of Missouri. And nothing fancy, no graphics, no videos, anything like that. Just a really clean, fast-loading site where you can go to and you can peruse. I always used to love that word. I don't get to use that enough. Peruse all the different articles and the different stories and sometimes just videos and things like that that are around the state going on that particular day. We do the top three. We bring in this guy.
I'm Casey Kasem.
He counts them down.
Now on with the countdown.
And we start with...
In third place...
Brad, that was a kind and thoughtful promo you just gave me there. And I would like to say that for folks who do visit my website regularly, you know that KCUR in Kansas City makes St. Louis Public Radio look like Fox News.
I don't know how that is.
And this weekend, they didn't disappoint, Brad. On Friday, we didn't get a chance to talk about this on Friday. So on Friday, and I had a link up over the weekend, they ran a powerful headline, Brad. There's so many commercials and advertisements on television about immigration. Well, KCUR tells us what's what. The headline is, for immigrants in Kansas City, racist election messaging is, quote, harming all of us. And this piece is brought to us by an intern at KCUR. They have a show there, Brad, called Up to Date. So you could think of Up to Date as kind of like what we have in St. Louis for the midday show in St. Louis. A veteran journalist called Steve Kraske does Up to Date in Kansas City. Everything's up to date in Kansas City. And they have an intern named Josh Marvine. Well, Josh is tired, apparently, of all this racist rhetoric about immigration. And he went to a woman named Itzel Vargas-Valenzuela. She's actually in Kansas, so I don't know why we care about her opinion. But she's a program director for something called Advocates for Immigrant Rights and Reconciliation. And what Josh and Itzel put together was quotes from Josh Hawley. And here's one of them, Brad. I want you to tell me how offended you are by this. Lucas Kuntz gives amnesty to millions of illegal immigrants, letting them draw down on Social Security without paying their fair share. Now, Brad, I ask you, doesn't that sound like Josh Hawley is trying to incite violence against immigrants? Tell me the truth, Brad.
You know what? Don't go there. I mean, it's just a point where, isn't he sort of telling the truth? Isn't that what he's doing?
Whoa, I'm glad you brought that up, Brad. Because you know what? When I disagree with you from here on out, I'm not going to call you what's in the headline here, which is racist. I'm not going to call you the word of 2024, the phrase of 2024, which is Christian nationalist. No, Mr. Marvin and Itzel have a better term for what you are, Brad. You are a nativist. How's it feel to be a nativist, Brad?
You know, what I need to do is in the other studio, I need to bring the Rodney King quote in here where he says, can't we all just get along? Can't we all just get along? Why is it that we have to further dissect ourselves into, once again, do I have to call upon my watching TV on September 12th, 2001, where the Republicans and the Democrats got together on the steps of the Capitol and, what was it, America the Beautiful, they sang? I mean,
yeah, God bless America.
Right. It's like, come on. Go ahead, John. I'll just go on.
I don't know. First of all, whatever language that is, Brad, it sounds very nativist. And hopefully KCUR can translate them into Espanol. A nice anecdote about Miss Itzel that I learned because I went to her group's website, and it turns out that she snuck into the United States at age 11. So she is really a success story, Brad. She's a DACA kid, which means she didn't say whether she swam across the Rio Grande or whether she laid real still in the back of a truck or something when she snuck across the border at age 11. But to me, it seems like she's a success story. She snuck into the United States, and now she helps other people who need to get, a few benefits here and there. I think it's a beautiful story, you nativist.
Only in America. I mean, if you go around the world and look at other countries' immigration, standards, every once in a while there's a story that comes out that somebody is hiking near the North Korean border and they ultimately cross the border unbeknownst to them, and they're in North Korea. And what happens to them, John?
Oh, they're treated very kindly.
Yeah, not. They're thrown in a gulag, and then the United States State Department has to pray on their knees, please, North Korea, give them back to us, please, right?
I think we all know, Brad, that the United States and immigration went downhill. I heard there were people of German ancestry that came over maybe from Russia. I don't know. That could just be Russian disinformation, though.
My grandfather was an illegal immigrant. Stayed in this country. It's just a bizarre story. People ask me every once in a while, somebody will get into, well, how about your family? I go, well, my dad, I think I told you that when my dad told me this story, when he finally found out, my dad spent his adult life, after he retired, of trying to find out more about his father. And I'll never forget going over there one day, and my dad was, I guess it was probably about a year before he passed away, maybe not even, maybe 6 months. And he was very depressed. And I said to him, Dad, what's going on? And he says, come to the end of the line. I'm, thinking like, well, what are you going to do? Is this like suicide time or something like that? And he says, no. I found out the whole story on my father. His father left him when he was 2 years old. His father, my grandfather, was an illegal immigrant from Russia, never became a naturalized citizen, worked in the shadows, became a machinist, and actually has patents in his name to this day. You can pull up on the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and see my grandfather's patents, and avoided him like the plague, didn't pay child support, and when he was on his deathbed, he sent one of his buddies to my dad's place of employment. The guy walks up to the receptionist, said, your father, tell Lee that his father's in City Hospital number 1 or 2, whatever it was at the time, and he's dying. My dad goes to see him. He dies an hour later. So it's to the point where we have no history. We just know he came from Russia when, my grandfather, his father, when he was like 3 or 4. No, he was like, I think he was like 12 or 13. So I don't know. I don't know. I just got a bulletin from CNN. They said that was on a laptop, but it was Russian disinformation. Are we done with that one, John?
I think we are.
Up a notch to number 2.
It's prediction season, and everybody's got an opinion. But you know what I want to hear, Brad? I want to hear from somebody that follows this stuff day in and day out and can give me a little bit of advice of what to look for. One of the top headlines today on my website is the annual pre-election piece from Jason Rosenbaum of the aforementioned St. Louis Public Radio. Jason looks at the top 7, count them, 7 open questions from the general election this year. And Jason says 7 things to look for in the primary. And so he talks a little bit about whether or not Amendment 3, the abortion proposal, will affect down ballot races, whether or not Lucas Kuntz can get somewhere close to Josh Hawley. One of the questions is, can Kamala Harris turn back the clock on Democratic presidential performance? So what I like about what Jason does is that Jason gives these questions before the election, and then after the election, he does a postmortem where he answers his own questions. So a lot of people like to make predictions ahead of time, but you have very few thorough postmortems after an election. That's what I love about Jason's stuff. Also, Jason was on our friend Garrett Bowles' show down in Springfield over the weekend, KWTO Radio. You can find a link to that today up with timestamps. And Brad, Jason had a unique anecdote about the pro-life versus pro-choice vote on Amendment 3. Jason declined to make a prediction using numbers about Amendment 3's passage. Conventional wisdom is that it will pass. But Jason brought up the vote in 2006, and you might remember this, Brad, that was about stem cell research. And the analogy that Jason drew was that back in 2006, the pro-stem cell people spent a ton of money on their campaign, and it was considered a slam dunk, a shoo-in, a big margin victory. And in fact, the final tally was close. Now we know the cliche, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, but it does give us a little bit of context for if you have a huge expensive campaign versus what's considered like a grassroots pro-life effort. You shouldn't discount pro-life voters' dedication to getting to the polls. You see what I'm saying, Brad?
Yeah, and I listened to a show on Friday, and I listened to a couple other different shows, and I guess I was a little bit surprised that I heard several pundits saying that both Amendment 2 and Amendment 3 are toss-ups at this point. And the one guy said he doesn't think Amendment 2 is going to pass, which I'm going like, whoa, that sort of surprised me.
You know what? So first of all, I think that Amendment 2 vote will be closer than Amendment 3. I think there's a good chance that Amendment 2 fails. But I don't know, boy, it's, the polling, you can only count the polling so much, Brad. And I just think that it's easier to get a no vote and to raise doubts in people's minds than it is to get a yes vote in Missouri. We've seen that time and again.
Well, the interesting thing for me was, and I'm not trying to puff out my chest or anything like that, but the one expert said that the problem with Amendment number 2 is they've tied it to education. And he said Missourians are tired of that. So maybe my escorts for education, my legalized...
and your meth for math.
Right, my meth for math, my legalized prostitution, and my legalized meth amendments aren't going to make it anymore. But I thought that was interesting, and once again, I have heard other people make reference to the point. Well, if you're old enough, remember going back to the lottery when they say, the money's going to go for education. What they did was just the legislators just played a little Ponzi game with the money, and they took away. The lottery brought in, I'm going to throw out a number, $10 million, and the legislator took out $10 million of the education budget. So when the smoke cleared, everything was the same. I'm going like, no S. You know what I'm saying?
No S. And but Brad, to your point, you've mentioned this before too, as have others, that it might have been a little bit cleaner message instead of making education your primary message and trotting out teachers to say that this will bring more money to education. Just say you should be able to bet on the Chiefs. In Kansas City, say, why can't you bet on the Chiefs? You should be able to bet on the Chiefs. Well, and the only counter argument to that, Brad, of why they should have continued down the education path is, I can't imagine the folks that are running the Yes on 2 campaign went into this a year ago and didn't do really deep focus group messaging. They have to have some kind of numbers that say the education line is the winner, more than economic freedom, more than liberty. I would be disappointed if I was a pro-Amendment 2 person. I would be disappointed if somebody in the campaign couldn't point me to really good focus group work. And I just say, I'll do my monthly corporate callback here, Brad. We would have never come out with a campaign that said something about, say, supporting America's farmers if it didn't have testing over 80, 85%. It wouldn't have even been our primary message in the olden days at Monsanto. You don't come out with a message unless you invest a ton of money into finding out what moves the needle. So I'm guessing, I guess that's a long-winded way, Brad, of saying, I'm guessing that even though the education argument doesn't fly with me and you, it has to fly with a percentage of the electorate or they wouldn't be using it.
You guess. And matter of fact, we need to talk about this because of the fact that that interview I had last week with Greg Keller, and I'm sorry I misspelled his name.
I was just giving you a hard time. Everybody spells it wrong.
Yeah, it was Kellar, correct?
No, it is Greggg, two G's.
Oh, I got the Keller right, but I got Greg wrong.
Yeah,
I'm
correct.
sorry. I'm sorry. That was one of these, sort of, what do you call it? I don't want to call it like one of these defining moments, but when he essentially said, yeah, the reason the teams are in it is because, we'll talk about that in B Block, you and I were both sort of taken aback by that.
Had no idea.
Yeah.
And so Greg pointed out that sports teams will get a license. Now, what we didn't ask, and we could have looked into this, or I guess we still could, is whether or not the Cardinals, Royals, and the Chiefs. But what about St. Louis City, Brad? Does the soccer team get a license too? I think that's a good question.
Oh, no, they said that. That's in the ad. They talk about
it is. Okay,
yeah.
I didn't know that they get a license for sure, too.
Oh, yeah, it's all in the ad because essentially there's 6 teams. In St. Louis, you have the Cardinals, the Blues, and City, which is now Energizer or whatever the heck it is. And in Kansas City, you got the Chiefs, the Royals, and what's their team? KC, I don't know, whatever it is.
I think they're the Ladybugs, the girl team.
Ladybugs, yeah. They're the Ribs. That's what they are, Kansas City Ribs.
They're the Ribs.
Okay, number 1.
The number 1.
What could you do on election night? You could flip channels and hear the liberals at ABC or CBS or NBC or, I don't know, God forbid, MSNBC. You could hear Fox News call Pennsylvania for Kamala Harris at 6:59 p.m. local time. No, Brad. What you should do is you should go to YouTube and you should watch the This Week in Missouri Politics Election Night special. Once again, Scott Fawn and his team have put together a banger of a show, quarterbacked by the great Kelton Turner, I would add, have put together a heck of a program for tomorrow night. It starts at 7:30 p.m. You can watch it on YouTube. Brad, what I would suggest people do, if you have the YouTube app on your television, put Scott's show up, This Week in Missouri Politics Election Night special. Put it up on YouTube. Then you can sit on the couch and just scroll through the national alerts. Brad, it's going to be a banger of a show tomorrow night.
Are you on it?
Thanks for asking, Brad. Yes, I am. I will be joining Scott for 2 elections in a row.
So you're driving. So John, twice in 1 year, you're going to Jefferson City?
Incorrect. 3 times in a year.
3 times.
I did the midweek update in May.
That's right.
I did the election night special in August, and then I'm going there now. Now, for folks who aren't in on this gag, it had been, before I went to do Scott's midweek update back in May, it had been 15, count them, 15 years since I had been in Jeff City. The last time I went was for Governor Nixon's inauguration, and we had a great time in 2009. But I don't have any occasion to be in Jeff City. I'm not a reporter. I'm not a journalist, Brad. I'm just a simple hoodlum from Spanish Lake that follows politics.
As we are from Spanish Lake, we're just.
Hey, I bought my kids sets of dice over the weekend, Brad, because I realized that I was raising children that didn't know how to shoot dice. What kind of a Spanish Lake man raises children that don't know how to play craps?
Or bottle caps, or cork ball. You ever?
Yeah, now that was a little before my time. We played a little stick ball, but I'm thinking more of shooting dice when the teacher's not looking. I'm trying to teach good habits, not bad ones, Brad. But you got to know how to count dice quickly. You know what I'm saying?
Man, I'm telling you.
You got to shoot a little Joe. You got to not crap out. It's life lessons, Brad. Anyway, people can go to YouTube and you can get notified at 7:30 tomorrow night when the election special starts.
Okay, John, we got a lot of things to talk about in B Block. As a matter of fact, I've got some, I don't want to say inside information, but this St. Charles County thing has just gotten, are you kept up with this very much at all?
Well, I haven't seen this brouhaha about the Central Committee. Now, they're still mad that they invited some rogue guy with a multi-letter license plate, a repeating letter license plate to come speak, right? Aren't they still mad about that?
Well, that was when I gave my presentation to the candidate school, I guess, was it 2 years ago? So I've been invited back, amazingly enough.
Wow.
Matter of fact,
how did that one slip through
well,
the cracks,
halfway
Brad?
through my presentation, the guy who invited me, Dave Zucker, who's just a great guy. He's a former mayor of Darden Prairie and an attorney and just a really brilliant guy, but just a little bit on the dry side. As I'm going through my presentation, I stopped and I said, I don't think I'm going to be invited back next year, will I? So because I was going exactly opposite from what all the other people were saying, But anyway, that's a whole other story. Yeah, I've been invited back. I don't know if they're going to make it because they don't. It's sort of weird. They're having one. I mean, why would they have one on November 23rd when the election is tomorrow? But this is in preparation for the muni elections in 2025. So that's what they're going after. There's more school boards and there's more, I guess, city council and stuff like that going on in April of 2025. Because the muni elections are in April, and sometimes they're in weird years. They're not necessarily in the even years. So I don't know why that is.
I know we got to go to break, but is this where we roll out our anti-golf cart campaign, or did we wait till B block?
See, once again, I'm Mr. Libertarian kind of guy, but I'm thinking to myself, and I hate to say this, but there's going to be a nasty accident involving a go-kart and people, injured or, heaven forbid, killed. And people are going to take another look at this, going, maybe we shouldn't allow golf carts on the street.
I know it's going to be somebody from Guadalajara, and Nativist Brad Hildebrand's going to have a big rant about it.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?